Hey, everybody, this is Barry Johns. Welcome back to another edition of Studio Talk. So, in 2022, you've got plans, or you at least got an idea that you'd like to start a for hire recording studio. Let's get to it. Okay. We're back. All right. Do you ever wonder if the guy sitting across from the camera, that being me, you ever wonder if I'm just sitting here in my underwear recording these videos? Well, I guess you're going to have to ponder that. Okay. So now in 2022, you're contemplating creating a for hire recording studio. All right. So before we get into that, at least from this guy's personal perspective, all right, I want to tell you a little bit about what my dreams have been most of my adult life. I started recording at the age of 15, all right? Been doing this for over 40 years, okay? Over 40 years. You can do the math. Yes, I'm older than 55 by a couple of years. I'm 57, all right? So, I've been at this a long time, and I would say in the late 70s and the 80s, early 80s and stuff, I dreamed, my fantasy, my goal, my dream was to become a recording engineer in a major studio, okay? I didn't even have the dreams of owning my own studio or anything. I just wanted to make a living from recording music, okay? And so obviously I grew up in a small town in Kentucky, so that was going to require a whole lot of sacrifice to be able to do that, AKA getting in my car and driving somewhere else other than where I grew up. Okay. So I had this dream my whole life. And so I went through the 80s and you gotta remember, I started in analog. There was no digital when I started doing this. That didn't come to almost 15 years later after I started doing this. All right. And even then it was in its infancy, to say the least. Okay. So then you got through the 80s and I'm trying to figure out life and doing some other things. I'm doing a lot of recording, but I'm not landing that gig that I wanted to land. All right. And so we get into the 90s. And of course, I've got my home project recording studio that I've been using for forever. Okay. I'm talking about back then. This is in the 90s. All right. And I was an earlier adopter of digital. Okay. As far as home recording studios, believe me, I was there in its infancy. Okay. You talk about, if you complain about operating systems and issues and drivers and compatibility. Oh my gosh, it was a freaking nightmare back then. Okay, we were just super happy back then. If we could record about 15, 20 tracks and put a few plugins on them, okay, and be able to do that with the computer we had at the time. And that was a challenge back then, okay? Then later on, I knew everything was Pro Tools and all of the studio, so I was going to have to transition from everything I knew about audio. And trust me, working in the audio world is vastly different than working in the digital world. Even though the studios that I aspired to eventually work in, okay, those were a combination of obviously audio and digital, okay? But I quickly, as I'm going through this, I ultimately ended up buying myself a Pro Tools HD system, okay? Now, I've got some videos out there how I came about that for a very, very, very economical price, especially considering at the time they were selling for 20 grand. Okay. All right. So I got into that and I started getting really, really good at Pro Tools and started really creating some great mixes and things like that. Then all of a sudden, I'm reading music magazines, Mix Magazine, all the various ones out there that are gone, recording and what's the one over? I can't think of the one with the S name. My favorite one, actually, I can't remember. For whatever reason, I can't think of it right now. It's out of Europe. Okay. And all of a sudden, you start reading all these articles about these studios closing right and left. Now, this started primarily in the late 90s going into the early 2000s. Okay. That's when this all started to unfold. And let me tell you, it did not take very long. I'm guessing at this, okay, this is just from my recent memory from back then and things like that. But I would say it definitely took less than 10 years for your local recording studio to be completely obliterated, okay? And then it was just another 5 to 7 years after that before all the major recording studios were going up, okay? We're talking about the big dogs. If you think about it today, The major recording studios out there today, most of them don't even cater to modern pop music, okay? They're either doing orchestral stuff, gaming stuff, um, or different styles of music, okay? But a lot of those studios today are used in alternative ways. A lot of those guys back then got into post-production and things like that, working on the video, doing audio for the video side of things. So then I got a pretty good head on my shoulders, I think, and I started looking around and saying, this is probably not looking like this is really gonna work out, or, I'm sure I could have done it, but it just wasn't practical. Could I make any money with all these things closing? Where was that going? And then so I spend the next few years and I'm really honing my skills, and then I'm listening to stuff I'm recording in my bedroom that sounds really, really, really good, okay? Really good. I'm not gonna suggest that the stuff I was doing at the time completely matched and was sonically the same as what you were hearing on the radio, but I was getting good at it, okay? And so, when you learn that you can do that, you have to imagine, well, there's other people out there just like me that are doing this, that have these dreams and these goals and these desires of wanting to make that your life's purpose, or at least your purpose for working. Hopefully, you've got a bigger purpose in life other than a job, okay? But um, but I was seeing that door starting to slowly start to close, and then I have to imagine, gosh, if anybody, either everybody else out there like me has to be a complete moron, a complete idiot, or they're seeing the same thing I am, and they're seeing that writing on the wall that, quite frankly, was so clear, I can't even begin to tell you. All right. So I decided that that was just not viable. I was not going to spend my time and money investing in a potential career that was going to leave me making next to no money. Yes, could I still do it? But am I going to make any real money doing that? For me, no. Okay. So now here we are today. This is 2021. Okay. And if you do a search for local studios in your hometown, wherever you live worldwide, you may have a better chance still doing this over in Europe and or outside the continental US. But let's talk about the continental US. Let's stick with that, because that I can speak to and feel like I'm comfortably knowing what I'm talking about. Okay. So, you know, you go and look and you try and find these studios, and you're like, well, crap, man, there's hardly any out there. And the ones that are out there, okay, they're charging like $45 an hour to record. When back at the time I wanted to do this, man, it was like $300 or $400 an hour minimum. And the studio was booked 24 hours a day. Okay. So let's stop for a second and let's put some perspective and some reality to it. First of all, if you have a dream, chase that dream. Just know what you're chasing, know what you're getting into. And if that's where you want to take your journey in life, then go down that road by all means. But I'm going to give you some perspective that you should consider before going down that road. I'm not suggesting to you that it should stop you from going down that road, but it should certainly give you some perspective. Okay. And some of you may look at me and like, that old guy, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Well, let me explain to you. This old guy right here has been doing this a long time. So he's got what you call experience. Okay. And so if you don't think that means something, then I don't know what to tell you. I certainly looked to people throughout my life that were older and more experienced to give me wisdom and perspective. I was never that naive, stupid teenager that thought he knew everything. Okay. And I'm definitely not that guy today, for God knows that's true. Okay. So, and I don't know everything. I just can speak to what I do know, or at least what I feel like I know. Okay. And so, I'm going to give you a little bit of perspective about my journey and my career and things like that. Okay. If you've watched my channel for any length of time, you know that this is not what I do for a living. I'm not like a Rick Beato and some of these other guys out there who have a long history, a Dave Pensado, all these other guys out there that have a long history of success in the music business. That's not me. Okay. What I have is experience in the project studio and a lot of it at home. Okay. And so this channel is all about helping folks at home. If you operating a recording studio, then I'm probably not the channel you want to watch unless for these types of videos. Okay. Because you've already been there, you know where you're at. Okay. And so let me give you a little perspective. Anybody that wants to know anything about me, just take my name and Google that bad boy. There's not a lot of people in America called Barry. Let me tell you that. Okay. So it's pretty easy. I work in the hotel business. I've spent my entire career in the hotel business. I run a very large convention center at a very large convention hotel here in Orlando, Florida. And I've literally had over thousands and thousands of employees work for me over the years. Okay. And so I'm very blessed to have the job I have. That job I have and that career I have is what's paid for this and gives me the ability, quite frankly, to sit here and talk to you. Because if I didn't have that career, I definitely would not be sitting here doing this. Okay. I wouldn't. I couldn't even afford that camera that's back there. Okay. So, I get it, okay? And so what that gives me is a business sense. I've been responsible for, $50 million revenue operations, okay? Where that's just my operation a year. I've done it up to 85 million a year, okay? And so obviously that comes with a lot of responsibility, right? And so you learn about business, you learn about profit and loss, you learn about margins, you learn about operating expenses. You learn about capital expenses. These are all things that come into play. You learn how to, what you can deduct off taxes and what you can't. You know what can fall under certain line items and what others can't, because I already know these things. I've been doing it, right? But if you're starting a business, you probably don't know any of that stuff, all right? So let's do some basic math, okay? So if you're sitting over watching, you're thinking $40 an hour, Barry? Man, I want a job making $40 an hour. That's good money. And if you were making that $40 and you didn't have to pay anything out of it, that was all bottom line profit for you, by all means, get going, buddy, because you can make a living doing that, okay? But is that really how it works? Is that really how it works, okay? Let's start if you're gonna create a studio, right? You're gonna go out, you're gonna lease the building that you're gonna operate in, and you've got what they call capital expenses, and you should know that. And if you don't know that, you're not going to know how to deal with your tax attorney, your tax guy, okay, or tax girl, whatever that is, okay. And so you've got your build out. You do your build out. You're like me. You're very handy with tools. You know how do you feel comfortable doing it? And if it were me, I'd do it myself. And I think most of you out there would do it yourself too, okay. And so once you do that and you get it all built, let's don't even talk about the expense of that. Let's don't even talk about the expense of having to buy and maintain the gear. Now, odds are, if you're thinking about creating a studio, you've already got enough gear that will be compelling when people walk into your studio or they look at your gear list on your web page, okay, that it is a reasonably impressive list. And if you don't have that, do you really think people are going to come and see you on a regular basis where you're working constantly every day or at least 5 days a week? Okay. Even 8 hours a day, let alone 8 to 10 to 12 to 14 to 16 hours a day. Okay. And so when you look at these things and you say, okay, $40 an hour, but I've got expenses, Barry. I've got to pay bills with that $40 an hour. Okay. So what is $40 an hour? That's 8 hours a day. That's 320 times 5 days. I don't know, $1,700 a week. Okay. So let's say you're making, let's keep the math simple. Let's put this in what I'll call cornbread English. Let's say your studio is booked. I mean, you are in fact working 5 days a week. Okay. And you're making, let's say, $6,500 a month. That's your top line revenue coming into your studio. All right. Well, now you got to pay rent. All right. And so rent for that space is most likely at the very least going to cost you $800 to $1,600 or $1,700, $1,800 a month. If you're smart about where you do it, you don't need a prime location for this kind of stuff. That's not what's going to draw people in. You're not drawing people off the street into your business. They know you're there and they'll drive to you. So you can negotiate that and find something that is a lot lesser expensive than your average person going out and starting a business in a lease situation. Okay. So you got the bill out, you got the lease. Now you got to have insurance. Okay. So you got to pay insurance on the building. You got to pay liability insurance. You've got to have insurance on your gear, on your equipment, fire, water damage, all of those things. You have to pay that insurance. That ain't cheap. Okay. So you got to pay that. What do you got to pay next? Okay. Well, you got this pesky little thing called an electric bill. And if you don't think all of this gear around me eats up a lot of electricity, I'm here to tell you, homeboys and girls out there, it does. All right. And so you got that. And what's part of that electricity? You got AC. You got to heat and AC that space. Okay. That could be $500-600 a month just for that in a space like that. Okay. And so you've got all these expenses coming up. On top of that, you have to be able to reinvest money, set money aside for equipment repair, and I'm doing this all the top of my head for the record. Okay. I'm not reading off something. You see me look down. This computer down here is distracting me. Okay. Excuse me. I got a call. Sorry, I'm 2 weeks past Omicron and it's still getting me a little bit, although it was relatively mild for me for the record. So anyway, so you've got all these expenses coming in that you've got to pay out. All right. And there's so many more that are associated with it. You got to pay any fees and everything going towards keeping your software up to date. All of those things. You just can't bury your head in the sand and see $6,500 a month coming in. You feel like, I got money. I'm good to go, Barry. This is a lot of money. Well, you're going to get bills after that month and you got to pay them. Okay. And I'm here to tell you, you cannot make a reasonable living and support a family on a recording studio that generates $40 an hour. Okay. Not in the situation I just mentioned. Okay. Because the bottom line, after it's all said and done, you're going to be lucky to get $15 to $20 an hour of that going towards you. And that may sound like a lot of money to you right now, but as you get older and you get into a family and things like that, you'll find that's not as much money as you thought. Now, keep in mind, you making that money was based upon your studio being booked 5 days a week, at least 8 hours a day. Now, what do you think the law of averages are on that given today's circumstances? Me, if I'm recording an album that I truly plan to release, okay, put out there, okay, the only thing, and I'm telling you, the only thing I'm going into a freestanding studio is to record drums. That's it. I'm not recording another thing in that studio because I can do it right here in this room as good, if not better, than they can. All right. So why in the world would I waste any more money than that? Okay. So it's just the drums and if that, right? And that's mainly because I want the room. Okay. And I probably want some access to some more higher end mics that they probably have. You know, I've got a great collection of mics and I've got a drum kit mic, but I'd rather be putting, you know, an 87 on the outside of the kick, right? I'd rather be using 421s on all the toms, but I don't have that. Those are $400 each. So, you know, you're miking up a drum kit. You could easily get, 8-9 grand of microphones alone just miking a drum kit. Okay. So if you want to do it at that level, okay. And then of course all the hardware, but I've got the hardware to be able to do that. Okay. So you get where I'm going with this? Are you feeling me? Are you feeling me? So you still say, I don't care, Barry. I want to do this. Okay. If you want to do it, and I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm just saying it's hard. Now you may be the person that breaks the mold, that proves everybody wrong about this and changes the entire world for all of us. That may be you. And I hope that is you. Okay. So again, there's other countries out there where things I'm saying right now are not applicable. It's not an apples to apples comparison. Utilities may not be as much. The cost of the space not be as much. The cost of even maintaining the gear because you may be able to get cheaper labor than you may be able to get here in the United States. There's a lot of compounding things that come into play with that. Okay. So that's why some other people may be doing better or faring better than others. Okay. Um, and so, it's one thing being in your 20s, maybe early 30s, only living off $20 an hour. But and then talking about a whole family on that. And so you're probably never going to see your kids. But by the time you get in your late 30s, 40s, and 50s, you're still trying to do that and assuming that's still a viable option for you, that's not as much as you think. Okay. Now I don't want to sound like a prude or anything like that, but I think most of you out there are probably capable of doing better than that in your life. Okay. So anyway, some of you are young and you've not gotten there. I'm talking about when you're getting older and older and older, you're getting more experience, more valuable to the workplace, then income starts to rise. Okay. So things like that. Don't want to get too hung up on that. Okay. So if you do want to start it, what I highly recommend to you is be able to find a way to be able to create that business. And hopefully you're in a zoned area or an area where you can operate a business out of your home and still not and be in compliance with local and state regulations. But to do it at your house, and do that, then you don't have the overhead is greatly, greatly, greatly minimized. One, you're probably not gonna be working in anywhere near the size space that you would need in a freestanding location because of the variety of things you've got to be able to track. And you don't, and time is money. You got to be able to do things fast. And so yeah, if you're gonna do it, if you want to try and dabble with it, try and do it from your home. Okay. But if you're gonna go down that road, make sure that you've got the gear that makes that compelling to potential people who are gonna come there. Okay. And I'm not saying you have to invest a ton of money, but if I go into that studio and all I'm seeing is nothing but a bunch of Clark Technique, I'm walking right back out. Not happening. Okay. Not happening. Not happening. Okay. And so, you're gonna need to think about these things because wouldn't you look at the same stuff if you're going in? You're gonna spend your hard-earned money. Don't you want to feel comfortable? Now you could say, "Oh, Barry, forget all that stuff. I'll just play them something I've done and that'll be good enough." That's good if you've gotten to that point. Most people aren't like you and I, where they just want to assess you on the end result. They should. That's the only fair way to do it. Who cares about all the bells and whistles and all the optical stuff, the eye candy, okay? Because you're probably gonna do most of it in the box anyway, and they don't know that, okay? And and so, just look, okay, all I'm telling you, I could keep going on and on. This could be an hour or 2-hour video if I keep going like this, okay? So I think you're feeling where I'm coming from, all right? Again, I don't wanna be that Debbie Downer. I don't wanna be that guy who's trying to talk you out of pursuing your life's dream. Okay. And if you're young and single, you got nothing whatsoever to lose, then just forget it. Just do it. You only got that time of your life one time. Have fun with it. Okay. But understand these things. Okay. It's not going to be an easy road to travel. All right. If you truly want to get into it, and this is so freaking hard, it was always hard, but it's way harder today. And that is to try to move to LA, move to New York, move to Nashville, move to Atlanta, okay? And try and get yourself, you know, doing stuff for free if you can afford to do that and work your way as an intern on the way up. That's historically the way you get into these things if you don't know that already, okay? You know that. I know you know that. So why did I even waste my time saying that? Okay? So if you can do that, that's a better route for you to get the experience, all right? So, kind of think about this stuff, consider your options, and by all means, before you even do that, if your skills are not solid as a rock, I mean, you know what you're doing, you're fast, you're efficient, okay, and you're good, right? All right. Don't even consider doing this unless that what I just said to you, equates to your experience and your level of experience and your knowledge, okay? Because otherwise, you're going to do more damage than good to yourself long term. All right. So make sure you're there because once you get some negative words in a local regional area, that news travels pretty fast in these circles. So keep that in mind. All right. So anyway, when I say anyway, I'm about ready to end the video, and I am. All right. So I got a whole boatload of videos out there covering a range of subjects. Okay. I encourage you to go out there and watch them. Most of my videos, when I do them, my goal, my objective in trying to figure out the content I'm going to talk about, it's kind of try to be as um, without time. Things I talk about are going to be just as relevant today or just as relevant 10 years from now as they are today. It's only when I get into very specific pieces of gear, very specific pieces of technology is that going to change. But a conversation like this is likely to be good for a very long time. Such is the case with many, if not most of my videos. Okay. I tend to take a philosophical viewpoint and discuss the things that you and I should consider when we're trying to make the decisions in this journey that we're on for this whole music thing. Okay. This whole studio thing. So encourage you to go back there and watch those. Please do me a favor, leave some comments down below. Tell me what you think. If you want to tell me I'm a blustering idiot, then go down and say, Barry, you're a freaking blustering idiot. I'm never going to watch one of your videos ever again. Okay, then do it. You're free to do that. Free world. Okay, go do that. I hope you don't, but if that's what you do, you do it. Okay. But I'd rather see comments down there, people talk about it so that we can all learn from each other. And then one of the great ways to do that is do it in the comments. I typically get a lot of comments on my videos and a lot of conversation back and forth between folks out there. And so I want to encourage you to go do that. Okay. And so outside of that, do me a favor. Got to hit that like button, that subscribe button, and that notification bell so that when I put a video out, you know it's out and it's going to tell you, hey, recording guy or gal out there, go watch Barry John Studio Talk. You'll love it. Okay. So that's what's going to happen. So until next time, I hope every one of you have a happy recording studio at home day.